Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to episode number 30 of Let's Go Racing with David Starr. Tyler Jones here with you. So glad to have you with us. Coming up on today's show, we will look back at the weekend at Road America and also look ahead to this weekend's action in the NASCAR Cup and Xfinity Series. But before we do, don't forget that every Whataburger is made fresh, served hot, and prepared just like you like it. Want jalapenos and cheese on that? No problem. They've got you covered. Whataburger, proud to serve it hot and fresh 24 hours a day. Boys, we had the week off last week. I was on vacation. David had a lot of business to take care of, but nonetheless, we are back in the saddle again for another episode of LGR. David, how we doing after a fresh week off?
Man, I'm doing great. Just got back last night from spent the weekend in Houston and Galveston at the beach with my boys. And, man, I had a great 4th of July. It's kind of interesting to be in Galveston, Texas, because over the years, we've always been in Daytona racing, you know, and the NASCAR Xfinity Series and the Cup Series was obviously in Road America. And I was at the beach, so a little bit different than past years for me. But, man, had a great time celebrating the 4th of July at the beach, fishing, hanging out with my 2 little boys, and man, we had a big time. It was fun, and got back late last night, and looking forward to getting some stuff done during the week this week, and then flying over to Atlanta, racing there this weekend. So it was a great weekend. How about you guys?
It was good here. No complaints. Had a nice visit to Tampa for a few days with the family, but glad to be back at it again here on Let's Go Racing. I got to ask you, David, I know you love being at the racetrack, but spending a holiday with the wife and the kids, getting to go to Galveston and everything, these memories at your kids' age too, I imagine these are ones you cherish. Sure, you'd like to be racing, but family before everything, right?
Absolutely. That's always, as a NASCAR race car driver and all the races we run week in and week out. And, our schedule's a grueling schedule, as you guys know, and, you don't really have a lot of time to spend with your family. And, because there's sponsor commitments, you're working on sponsor deals, and there's so much stuff involved in being able to race and as a professional race car driver in these days, a lot of commitments and, so it's a balance in that, and really the NASCAR, the racing side, it's it takes up 90%, it takes up so much time. And so when you can have a weekend off and spend it with your boys at the beach, fishing and playing in the beach and just doing some cool daddy son stuff, it's those, like you said, Tyler, those are priceless moments. You know what I mean? You're creating memories, and man, it was a memorable weekend, and it was a lot of fun. So I was just, me personally, I was catching up on being a dad, which was a lot of fun.
That sounds like it. Dominic Aragon from the RacingExperts.com joins us as well. Dom, how was your 4th, man?
Man, it was a lot of fun. Had a lot of good family time. We had a barbecue at my aunt, my mom's sister, and her family's house. And it's always a busy time of the year for us because my dad's birthday is June 28th. Her and her husband's anniversary is July 5th. My Uncle Roman, his birthday is July 5th. And my mom's birthday is July 6th. So it's always just the night after night. We're going out to eat with the family, or we're having a barbecue. So it's a really nice time with the immediate family, and this year was no exception to that. And with things reopening, there's a big parade that happens here in Grants, New Mexico, and a lot of fireworks shows. So great time to spend with the family, and definitely one of those great weekends to be able just to not necessarily have to worry about work, but just spend time with family and leisure.
That's great. David, I know that you're a patriot. You love this country, and I got to say, on this 4th of July, I was just so thankful, looking back at, where our country's been and what all we've gone through, and just to remember all that we've been through, where we're at right now. I mean, I'm just so grateful that we're part of this country, and we can take that time to celebrate and recognize who we are as American people. What do you make of just this Independence Day weekend that occurred, and what came to mind for you as an American?
Man, just the freedoms we have, and just celebrating. Just when you're at the beach and there's a parade going on, and man, they're throwing beads and candies and American flags, and you see all the patriotic stuff and flags, American flags on the beach, and you see people carrying flags, and it just reminds you, for me, Sunday was just a reminder how fortunate we are to live in such a great country. You know what I mean? We're all proud Americans and the freedoms we have, and it was just cool, man. I was just I've never seen so many people at the beach, man, and everybody was happy. And we watched a phenomenal fireworks show. But before that even started, just all the people that were celebrating with fireworks and American flags and the music, and it was just a great time for lots and lots and lots of people. And when you're there popping firecrackers with your boys and watching the parade, it just reminds you, reminds all of us, we're just thankful that we live in a great country, great nation, the United States of America. And it's cool, man, the freedoms we have. And man, it was just a fun time, man. It was pretty cool to be out there amongst everybody and celebrating. I don't know. I felt, for me, I was a proud American. I mean, we're proud Americans every day. Right. But, a little bit more so, and to see everybody celebrating and the happiness, and like you were saying, Tyler, all the things that we have come through the last year, and what we all been through, and to be able to everybody get together and celebrate like we did Sunday day and evening was just phenomenal. It was unbelievable.
Well, Dominic, NASCAR of all places this past weekend, Road America. First time since the 50s that they had raced there, and they went all out for the patriotic celebration. I think you said it on Twitter. Nobody does patriotism. Nobody celebrates America like NASCAR.
Absolutely. Even look at the patriotic paint schemes sprinkled throughout the field throughout the weekend, and a place called Road America. How more American does it get than that, right? I mean, we know it's been tradition to have this race weekend typically held at Daytona, and that's been a long-standing tradition. But when you have just the name Road America, just the name itself, and you're at a venue celebrating 4th of July weekend, you all know I've made it no secret, I'm a huge Packers fan. And to hear that there were more people in attendance at this race on Sunday than something at Lambeau Field, quite amazing for NASCAR's return, the Cup Series return, I should say, to Road America.
That was cool. And it was Chase Elliott getting to victory lane for the second time in 2021 in the Cup race. And it's his second road course win of the year. Also puts him just third all-time on the all-time road course wins list. Granted, there are a lot more road courses now than there were even just a few years ago. But nonetheless, David, we've already seen Chase Elliott win a championship. But how about this run that he's been on road courses right now? I mean, he's looking as good as any road course racer we've ever seen. We've known that Chase is a good all-around racer, but he is something special when it comes to these road courses.
Yeah, no doubt about it. He's just something special as a NASCAR race car driver. As just a race car driver, there's just tons and tons of talent there, and he's our superstar of our sport. He's one of the hottest drivers out there, and his ability and the apple didn't fall too far from the tree where, from his parents, you know what I mean? And his dad. And, but man, to see Chase the last 2-3 years and how competitive and winning the championship, and it's amazing, but, you look at the organization that Chase is with, Hendrick Motorsports, you look at the drivers they have, and again, this race Sunday, was all the Hendrick drivers up near the front of the field again, and very competitive. It's not surprising that Chase Elliott was in victory lane, and y'all might know the statistics, and I think I'm reaching out there because I don't have 100% guarantee, but I think I heard that Hendrick Motorsports has won the last 10 race. Wait a minute. They've won 10 out of the last 20 races. I mean, the dominance of that organization, you look at Kyle Larson, you look at Chase Elliott, no matter if it's Road America or any road course, but you put Chase Elliott, Phoenix or, Atlanta Motor Speedway. I mean, these guys are on fire, man. Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson, Hendrick Motorsports. You look at the other two drivers that race there, man, that whole organization and William Byron and just, these guys are on fire, man. So it's kind of interesting. And, and it might come down for, the Hendrick drivers to be competing against each other for the championship, So it's just really interesting season to me, how it's turned out. And we talk about it a lot, Tyler and Dominic. We talk about it every week, and we know the Joe Gibbs cars are strong. We know the Penske cars are strong, but and you look at Stuart Haas, and man, it's just, I would have never thought that Hendricks would have been so dominant this year. We hadn't seen Denny Hamlin in victory lane. We haven't seen Kevin Harvick in victory lane. So it's been a quite interesting season to date in 2021.
Well, David, I have a theory on that. And I'll start with Dominic and go to you, get your thoughts, both of you, on this. You guys know, I mean, it's no secret, Chad Canals is the greatest crew chief in the history of this sport. No questions asked. No ifs, ands, or buts. They moved him to competition director. And I think that was the best thing they could have done for the whole organization, because it made everyone better. To me, that's where I look at it. If you're trying to compare how things are different between this year and last year, besides just Kyle Larson, Dominic, I think it's about Chad Canals being that competition director, helping out all four of those teams. I think that's what's been the difference. What say you?
No, I don't think you're wrong there, Tyler. And you take a look at just the last 8 races, right, with the exception of Pocono. In the second Pocono race, Kyle Busch won there. 3 Hendrick drivers have won 7 out of the last 8 races in the Cup Series, and not even including the All-Star race. We're just talking points-paying races. But it's amazing to see their dominance. This is what we remember Hendrick Motorsports like throughout the mid-2000s. And not to mention also tying and beating Richard Petty Enterprises, I should say, on the all-time wins list as far as team owners go in this sport. I mean, I'm curious, what do you all think here too? I mean, if Jimmy Johnson was somehow a part of this organization as a full-time driver in 2021, do you think he would be experiencing the same fruits of these benefits as these other guys are?
What say you, Dominic, or David, rather? What do you make of what Chad's done as competition director there? And do you think we would have seen this with Jimmy had he raced this year?
Well, just speaking about Chad Canals, obviously, like you said, Tyler, he's just one of the all-time best crew chiefs ever in our sport, and I think Rick Hendricks and that organization, the powerhouse they have been forever, and the move they make to put Chad Canals as the competition coordinator, I think that was a great move. But I think if we had Chad on here and asked him, I think it's a little bit of all of them. It's the whole organization. It's the manufacturing, Chevrolet. Last couple of years they've been beat up a little bit, and they're not used to that. You know what I mean? And I think probably last year they really hunkered down and went to work. And and Hendricks. I mean, we thought we were going to see Jimmy Johnson and maybe in victory lane last year. It didn't happen. I don't even think it got close. I think it was one race he got close, but their cars. And it's hard to say where the problem lied, you know what I mean? Because it's Hendricks. We used to seeing those guys in victory lane top 3s every race, and we didn't see that last year. And like I said, I think that the technology, the engineering, the move we're talking about Rick Hendricks putting Chad Canals as a competition director, the manufacturer, the drivers, I mean, everybody, they got some smart people at all levels at Hendricks. And I think, man, they have figured out, I mean, they got some of the best race car drivers ever on those teams. Their cars are driving good. I think those Hendrick motors make pretty good power. And man, whatever it is, whatever that recipe they have, man, the outcome is success and wins. So, but speaking about, Tyler, what y'all were talking about, Chad Canals, I think definitely was a right move in the right direction. And I feel like that move was a part of the reason why Hendricks is having so much success in 2021. And then you guys were talking about Jimmy Johnson, and Jimmy's a great friend of mine. And, to see him race last year when he announced that 2020 would be his last season, and then we dealt with COVID and no fans at the races, I really felt like, I was like, man, it just wasn't fair for the sport. I guess the fans couldn't be at the racetrack to cheer Jimmy Johnson on and cheer him on, just to tell him thanks for all these great years and thank you for what you have done in this sport. I mean, there's really no other sport where somebody has won as many championships as he has done. And, I really felt like 2021, Jimmy would race again in NASCAR for another year because of the circumstances our whole world was in last year, And so to hear y'all speak about, to hear Dominic and Tyler, hear y'all talk about, if Jimmy was still driving a Hendrick car this year, I think we would see Jimmy Johnson in victory lane, not just once, but multiple times, you know what I mean? Because, we know his abilities there, that for a fact, and I wish that he would have been racing in 2001. I would have loved to have seen Jimmy Johnson make more history about maybe winning the 8th championship, but unfortunately, guys, I think he'd had enough of NASCAR racing and really wanted to jump to another form of racing in Indy cars. So anyway, it's a legitimate question, and I think y'all probably hit on something but I think definitely Jimmy Johnson would have been in victory lane this year.
Well, to add to that, though, on the flip side, Dominic, as great as Jimmy Johnson is, greatest to ever do it, I think if you had to ask Rick Hendrick, though, if you had to do it over again, Jimmy retired and Kyle Larson coming in, it all worked out. It worked out for the better for the future of Hendrick Motorsports to go ahead and have Jimmy step aside and bring Kyle Larson in. As great as Jimmy is, in Hendrick's case, it really, in all honesty, worked out even better than what they could have hoped for.
I think you're right, too. I mean, this is something that was years in the making. I had a really close source to all this information, right? 2014, 2015, Kyle Larson entering the sport. Rick Hendrick has wanted Kyle Larson a part of his organization for a long, long time. And my source had told me, yeah, they were willing to let him go for $30 million, that Chip Ganassi Racing. And Gordon wanted him originally as his replacement. It didn't happen, but the way circumstances fell, you're right. Kyle Larson ended up working out at Hendrick Motorsports. And you're right. Rick's got to think of the future and the future of his organization. And it couldn't have worked out any better the way it did in 2020. And they have a great asset there in the 5 car. And I mean, certainly it's going to be hard to replace Jimmy Johnson and anybody that's going to fill those shoes, but replacing that void with the 4th driver and Kyle Larson, it's already paying off for Hendrick Motorsports in 2021.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you had to lose Jimmy Johnson, but you get Kyle Larson, it all worked out because if Jimmy stays one more year, David, they're not getting Kyle Larson in that seat. I mean, he would be with another team right now.
Well, man, you look back on things, and it's interesting how things fall into place. You look back earlier, you look back into 2020 and COVID, and, our sports shutting down, all major sports shutting down. And, you look at Kyle Larson being the racer he is. I mean, he's another AJ Foyt, Tony Stewart, no doubt about it. He's been winning all these cup races, and in the next night he jumps in the World of Outlaw race car and he wins there as well. But when COVID shut down our sport of NASCAR racing, Kyle Larson jumped on iRacing, and we all know that he made a mistake. He made a mistake. But if you reverse, if you go back in time last year, and if that mistake wouldn't have happened, I mean, he'd still be driving for Chip Ganassi. You know what I'm saying? And there's not a Kyle Larson driving at Hendricks, I don't believe. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of interesting how everything kind of fell in place, you know what I mean? And so it's just interesting to look back on things and to see how timing worked and how things fell and worked out. But man, like you said, Tyler, it couldn't have worked out any better, man. It's just a match made in heaven, basically. You know, it's just perfect, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's no secret, too. They get Kyle at a discounted rate, too. They're hoping for more sponsorship, but nonetheless, they're not having to pay him what he would have if everything went down that way, too. So something to think about there. This weekend, tell us about what's ahead for you, David. I know that you had the week off last week. What are you looking forward to this week and getting back in the race car and stuff?
Man, I can't, you know, Atlanta's always a fun racetrack, man. It's just the track's wore out. The thing needed to be paved 10 years ago, and I'm glad they never paved it. So we go there and, you know, you put on a new set of Goodyear Eagles and, you know, you run 2 laps. And then on the 3rd or 4th lap, the tires are falling off a half second. You know, there's nowhere other racetrack that we race at that after 3 or 4 or 5 laps that you lose a half second on the tires, you know. But man, Atlanta Motor Speedway, I mean, you're slipping and sliding. Multiple grooves. I mean, that's the fun part about racing there. You can run right up against the wall. You can run on the bottom. It's all about keeping the momentum and keeping that car moving forward, you know, and trying not to use up all your tires. It's easy to burn up your tires so quick. You know, you got to be so disciplined, but it's hard to be disciplined when you're racing people, you know. So, man, I'm looking forward to it. I will be back in the Whataburger Toyota Supra. I think we're running number 61 this week. Sometimes I tell Carl, it's like, Carl, what number we're running this week? I don't even know. You know, there's a rhyme and a reason, and sometimes I don't understand it. But I'm excited to be back in our Whataburger Toyota Supra, and man, I'm looking forward to having a great race. You know, and man, I'd race every day if I could. You know, and taking the weekend off last weekend and let Boris Said drive my race car, man. People don't realize. Even though I took advantage of family time and loved every minute of it, but man, it's tough, man. That's a tough deal. I've been doing this 24 years, and I've never stepped out of my race car to let somebody else drive it. You know what I mean? But I think the way the circumstances are and the way COVID has been, and just the circumstances of thing, it was the right thing to do for our organization. But man, I can't wait to get back in the race car, get back to racing. I can assure you of that. I love that. I love doing that. That passion to win and to run good, it still burns hot in my body, and can't wait to get over there and get back to racing. That's for sure.
Dominic, Atlanta, you're going to be there this weekend. That is a special place for NASCAR. So much history that has occurred there over the years. You're our resident historian here on the show. What does Atlanta Motor Speedway mean to NASCAR?
Well, you really can't tell the story of NASCAR and the track history throughout the sport without Atlanta Motor Speedway and the repave and reconfiguration in 1997. The track that used to have championships crowned, the famous 1992 battle between Alan Kulwicki and Bill Elliott, and Kulwicki leading one more lap than Bill Elliott to be able to clinch the 92 championship. And just so much with that. I mean, even my personal bias towards Jeff Bodine holding the track record there once the track got repaved in 97 with his Hot Atlanta qualifying lap. A lot of cool things in the works for Atlanta Motor Speedway. This is their first year since I believe 2010 that they had 2 points awarding cup races, and that's going to continue in the next year. They have the big resurfacing, I don't even know what you want to call it, this whole reconstruction project with Atlanta Motor Speedway that's going to start after this race weekend. They're going to reconfigure, add some banking in the corners, narrow up the front stretch in the corners. David, I was curious on what you thought about that. Some drivers were vocal about the new configuration that's going to happen at the track starting next year. What's your take on it, and how much different, or maybe not so different, will the racing be?
You know, when I heard the news this morning about what was going on at Atlanta Motor Speedway for the future, Atlanta's always been a fast racetrack and a fun racetrack to race on. And, you know, the interesting part, I try to qualify for an ARCA race in the old configuration of the racetrack back in 1995 or 6, you know, and, but man, it's just been a great racetrack. And listen to you talk about the 1992 championship between Bill Elliott and Alan Kulwicki. I was actually sitting in the stands that Sunday afternoon. And
we weren't born yet, David.
I understand, buddy. I was sitting in the stands cheering them on, and I remember I would always go to Daytona Beach, Florida for the Daytona 500, and I would always try to make it to Atlanta to crown the NASCAR Cup Series champion. And I've seen Dale Earnhardt win, they win the championship 2 or 3 times there at the year-ending race at Atlanta Motor Speedway, just sitting in the stands, just praying and hoping that one day that I was going to be able to race on that racetrack, but Dominic, you talked about what's going on in the future there at the Atlanta Motor Speedway. And the last time we were there, man, I heard some great news. I was talking to Ed Clark, the former president, the general manager of the Atlanta Motor Speedway for 30-something years. And Ed was telling me, and I'm sure this is public news, but they're trying to get a casino at the Atlanta Motor Speedway, and I thought, man, that's pretty exciting, a casino at the Atlanta Motor Speedway, kind of like the Kansas Speedway there, that has the Hollywood Casino on turn 2. I mean, that would be freaking awesome. And then to wake up this morning and hear the news about they're taking it from 24 degrees of banking to 28, going to narrow up the racetrack a little bit. I mean, there's some big plans for the Atlanta Motor Speedway. And like Tyler was saying, there's so much history there. I think that racetrack dates back to the 1960. I don't remember what year it was that it opened up, but I remember as a young boy and reading all my NASCAR books, man, it was always like Atlanta Motor Speedway. There was just a lot of great battles, a lot of great races there from a lot of the superstars of our sport. And to see what the future holds for Atlanta Motor Speedway, I'm excited about the future of our sport. If the future of the sport wasn't big, these racetracks wouldn't be trying to reconfigure, make more banking, make the racetracks better, make the racing better. I mean, and bring casinos to these facilities. So it just goes to show you, I think the health of our sport is in great shape when you see plans about what's happening in the future for the Atlanta Motor Speedway.
2 memories come to mind for me, guys, when I think of Atlanta. One of those is 2001 when Kevin Harvick got his first career win there just a few weeks after replacing Dale Sr. And then I think of 2005 when Carl Edwards went side by side with Jimmy Johnson to get his first career win there. David, both those moments were so special, and we've seen all sorts of things like that over the years there at Atlanta.
Man, just hearing you speak about that, I mean, golly, the emotions were so high, when we lost the late, great Dale Earnhardt. I mean, that was just, it was, our whole sport, the fans, the whole, if any kind of car racing enthusiast, he didn't have to be NASCAR. If you're a car enthusiast or you liked any form of racing, it seemed like the whole country, the whole world was mourning Dale Earnhardt. And when Childress made the phone call and asked Kevin Harvick to jump into the 29, BF GM Goodwrench Chevrolet, to have Kevin, kind of be the guy to, I don't know if I'm saying this right, to replace, not replace, or to drive Dale Earnhardt Sr.'s race car. I mean, the pressure, I couldn't imagine what Kevin was feeling, and to go out there to Atlanta Motor Speedway and win a race in the style that he wanted, man. It was, like you said, Tyler, it's a moment that I don't think the sport would ever forget. It was a phenomenal race. The emotions were extremely high. I remember there were a lot of tears, lots and lots of tears. And I think when that moment happened, kind of our racing community, there was some sort of I'm looking for words to use, but it was like, it just helped people heal a little bit more from losing Dale Earnhardt. You know what I mean? That was just, I just felt like that time in history in that race just helped all the race fans, definitely the NASCAR fans that were big Dale Earnhardt fans and that were mourning so bad. That gave them a little, a little bit of peace. You know what I mean? If that makes sense.
Well, David, I mean, you've been at a lot of NASCAR races. You've seen a lot of NASCAR history firsthand. Were you there that Sunday when Harvick won at Atlanta?
I was there, I was there, and I saw the emotions, not only the emotions of the Richard Childress organization, the emotions of the race fans, the competitors, the pretty much anybody that was a part of the sport in 2001 when Kevin won that race at Atlanta Motor Speedway. Man, you couldn't help but, I mean, I kind of want to say, if you didn't have any emotions, you didn't tear up, and that didn't make you feel some type of emotions, then you really didn't have a heartbeat. You know what I mean? I just seen a lot of happiness. I saw a lot of tears, lots of tears, and it was just, you knew that was definitely a special day, a special race, and a special win that would, we're still talking about it 20 years later. It was just amazing. And again, I think it helps some people have a little peace about losing Dale Earnhardt. You know what I mean? So definitely, I think, Tyler, that was a race that none of us will ever forget. You know what I mean? Pretty cool.
No question about it. And speaking of Dale Earnhardt, his son Dale Earnhardt Jr., David, before we get to our news and notes segment, I want to ask you about being a part of the Lost Speedway series at Texas World Speedway. You were at the premiere of season 2 there in Charlotte, hanging out with Dale and the Dirty Mo Media gang. Tell us about the premiere and what people can expect out of this episode at the Texas World Speedway.
Well, it was pretty cool. My good friend, Bob Dillner and Matt Dillner. Matt called me and he said, "Hey man, me and Dale Jr. want to do a episode about Texas World Speedway." And I'm like, "You got to be kidding me." And he said, "No, man, that's, Dale's really passionate about Texas World Speedway." And I didn't know that. And man, I was honored and proud that was even that I thought everybody forgot about Texas World Speedway, and it meant a lot to me because as a little boy, I can remember, my mom taking me and my brother to Texas World Speedway and walking up those 2 long entrances up that big hill on the front straightaway. You couldn't see the racetrack. You walked up these big hills, and the press box was massive. And man, when you got on the top of that hill, you had to walk a little bit of ways to the back of the stands. But man, when you looked over that racetrack and saw those Cup cars lined up on pit road, Richard Petty, AJ Foyt, Buddy Baker, Bobby Allison, James Hilton, it changed my life. You know what I mean? I couldn't wait to go to Texas World Speedway and see NASCAR, see the NASCAR, heroes. And I was a big Richard Petty, AJ Foyt. They were my heroes, and I don't think I missed but 1 or 2 races ever since 1971 or 70. I was just a little bitty boy. But man, if there wasn't a Texas World Speedway, me being the race car driver and making a living and being a NASCAR driver may never have happened, So I've seen so many races there, so many great races, and seen the superstars of our sport over the decades race there. And then having the opportunity that Gary Fields and Al Mallory gave me to go down there in 1996 or 7 and win the last race, Texas Race of Champions. And then my Uncle Mike, we started our NASCAR Team Texas High Performance Racing School there in 1989, 90. Dude, that place is special to me. You know what I mean? It meant a lot to me. And man, when I went down there, me and Johnny Rutherford were there on the same day, and they interviewed me for about 3 hours. It was pretty cool. And I had to tell you, it was emotional, man. It was just, it's kind of like being at a funeral. I'm there, and it's hurtful. You know what I mean? Because I love that speedway. And going into turn 1, it was gone. They bulldozed it down. It was flat dirt, and they had built some houses outside turn 2. And it was almost like being at a funeral, man. It was, I didn't realize when I walked in there and they were putting me in different places and they were really asking me great questions, man, it was emotional for me, man. I was like, I almost wanted to apologize to them. I didn't. And man, you know, when they had called at the last minute and said, "Hey, Dale Jr. wants you to come to the what do you call that? The movie, the premiere." Yeah. I mean, I was honored. You know, I got there and Kyle Petty was there and Dale Jr. He greeted me, and man, it was awesome, man. And the first they showed 2 shows. The first 2 episodes of 2021 of Lost Speedway. The first one was Texas World Speedway. And man, the emotions, man, watching that thing, I was like, man, I was kind of like fighting back tears watching it at the premiere, you know, and then you know,
was that the first time you've seen it, by the way?
I have not seen it. That was the first time I seen it when I was at the premiere, and then to have Dale Jr. get up and speak and thank me, and it was unbelievable. You know, you pinch yourself because you're like, can't believe this is happening. But they showed, you know, I don't know if y'all know this, Dominic, Tyler, but they showed the second episode. They showed 2 episodes there at the premiere. The second one was about Myrtle Beach Speedway. And man, just as emotional it was for me to watch that, the one on Texas World Speedway, the one about Dale Jr. and Myrtle Beach Speedway was more emotional. I was fighting back tears, and I could look to my left and right, and other people, I could see some ladies, and I seen a guy sitting next to him, and I didn't tell you who he was, but man, he had a tear rolling down his face. It was very emotional, and it was unbelievable. But man, what an honor. I was honored. I was honored to be, that I was asked to be part of that. And I was honored that they recognized Texas World Speedway because it was my favorite racetrack in the whole world. A 2-mile super speedway that had great races, and to be there at the premiere, it was an awesome event. I loved it, man. And I got another story to tell you about that here in a minute, you know.
Sure, David. I just want to follow up on that real quick. Seeing some of the photos from that premiere, I got to ask the elephant in the room. You're rubbing elbows with some of these legends of the sports, Allison Petty, Dale Earnhardt Jr., and Kerry Earnhardt, and there's Mike Davis, Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s PR guy. We all know Jr. and Davis do an excellent job on the Dale Jr. download. When are you going to be on the Dale Jr. download?
Well, I don't know. I don't ever, you know, I just focus on me and my sponsors and my racing team. You know, I focus on Whataburger, I mean, just all the people that allow me to race in NASCAR. You know, I've been great friends with Kerry Earnhardt and Dale Earnhardt Jr. for years. You know, when you've been doing this 24 years, you build those relationships. And, you know, I think there's a lot of respect on both sides. And, you know, you never, you know, I don't know. I just, man, y'all know, I just love to race. I want to win. I want to be competitive. I'm blessed. I've been doing it this long. And, you know, if Dale Earnhardt Jr. calls you and wants you to come to a movie premiere, you're just thankful and honored. You know, obviously over the years, you've done something right. You know what I mean? I don't, you know, I don't know how you say it. You know what I mean? I just love what I do, and I don't bother anybody. I try to, you know, do it respectfully and race my tail off as hard as I can. And take care of my sponsors, and I'm humbled to have the opportunity. And you know, when cool things like that happens, it's pretty cool. You know what I mean? But I mean, who am I? I mean, you know, we're nobody special. We were just blessed that we could drive a race car halfway decent, and somebody gave us opportunity. We ran with the opportunities. I mean, look at you guys. We talk about it a lot. You know, we create opportunities. We're passionate about it. And we work hard, you know, and I think if you do all that recipe, you know, you can go places, you know, and you know, it's just hard work, passionate, and a lot of want to, and you know, a lot of sacrifices that we've all taken. And man, I thank God every day that I get to race as long as I have and continue to race. You know what I mean? So yeah, pretty cool deal.
That is awesome, David. Some great stuff there, and we'll definitely be watching Lost Speedways. That first episode with David from Texas World Speedway, available now on Peacock, which you can watch for free with ads there. So check that out if you get the chance. Before we move on to our NASCAR news and notes segments, just a reminder that the folks at Whataburger cook up 100% pure beef burgers 24 hours a day. You can get your burger fix anytime, day or night at Whataburger. Proud to serve it hot and fresh 24 hours a day. Dominic, big news involving Team Trackhouse in Ganassi.
Very big news, Tyler. Perhaps maybe the biggest headline of the year so far. We find interesting on this, right? Justin Marks, Team Trackhouse, Chip Ganassi had this big news conference a few days ago. I believe it was July 1st, July 2nd. They addressed the media and they announced to the NASCAR world that Trackhouse Racing will be forming a two-car team in 2022 and that they have acquired the assets of Chip Ganassi Racing effective at the end of the NASCAR Cup Series season in November. Now, what's really fascinating about this, Tyler and David, when Chip was asked the question if his team was for sale, his team was not even on the market, is what he had told the media at this press conference. But there was a good enough deal where it was just so hard for him to not say no. So, I mean, I'm curious what you all think. What does this show about the state of the sport and Chip Ganassi, I guess, going all in and cashing his chips, no pun intended, on his Cup team?
Well, David, I look at it and it says a lot about Justin Marks and what he's doing. We didn't really know much about Team Trackhouse around this time last year, but then he finds a good driver in Daniel Suarez. They found good sponsors. They bring in Pitbull. They've been competitive. They've been just as good, if not better, than 2311 Racing, which everybody's been talking about, a big deal and such. So now to take this big step, to me, this is less about Chip and more about Justin Marks. I think that they're serious about this. Justin Marks is going to run a really good program there. They're going to compete at a high level. I'm excited to see what this team does. And they're eventually going to move the shop to Nashville and all that. I have high hopes for what Justin Marks is going to do with that organization.
Man, Tyler, no doubt about it. Justin Marks is a good friend of mine. I've known him for years and a great race car driver at that, and I was always amazed, and I tell him all the time, it's like, dude, you kind of retired a little bit too soon. He's a great road racer. But man, he's just a cool guy. He's just a cool dude. He's got a great wife and kids, and to see what they have put together in a short period of time, Trackhouse and Tyler, like you're saying, to hire Daniel Suarez and to have some great partners that they've had on their race car. I mean, they have been impressive this year. I mean, I don't know what the stats are, but I know they're impressive stats. Daniel Suarez has finished in the top 10, I think out of the last 5 or 6 races 4 or 5 times. I mean, it's just amazing how competitive they have been. And, you look at Justin Marks and Trackhouse. Am I saying that right? Trackhouse? Okay.
Trackhouse, yeah.
Yeah. And you look at, to bring in Pitbull, that's a world famous, singer. And you look at that ownership group, Ty Norris, the general manager there, and you just think about the sport of NASCAR racing. You look at all the owners, Roger Penske and Jack Roush and, Richard Petty and Richard Childress. I heard a while back, or it might have even been last season, they were talking about, who are the next owners in our sport. These guys, they've been great for racing forever. But, they're not getting any younger, and, they're getting up in their, 80s. I think Richard Petty's 86. He just had a birthday. And, I don't know everybody's ages, but, man, when you heard that last year, when I heard it, I started thinking, man, they got a point there. Who's the next group of owners? And to see Justin Marks come into the sport in 2021 and to see what they have put together, it's been impressive. And then you look at Denny Hamlin and Michael Jordan. You look at that organization and the Gibbs race cars and the sponsorship it has. that's a team, that's a powerhouse team that's going to be in the sport for a long time, and you look at what Denny's setting himself up, whenever he retires, that might be 10 years from now, but, Denny Hamlin's going to be a team owner, but even way before he retires. And then, we've heard the news, everybody knows about the news that Brad Keselowski is now owns, I don't know if it's half of Roush Racing, but Brad's going to go over to Roush Racing and own, I don't know if it's 50% of it. We don't know, but he owns a large part of Roush Racing now. He'll race one of the cars, and that brand, Brad Keselowski, is huge. He'll bring sponsorships with him. He'll have he's looking at his future, is he going to race 5 or 6 more years? And then when he retires, there you got Brad Keselowski as a team owner in NASCAR. So it's kind of interesting to look at the movement. These different owners that are coming in on the Cup side, we're seeing it right in front of us, and you're not only seeing these new owners coming in and look at Michael Jordan, these world, performers, athletes it says a lot about our sport, but they're coming into our sport as owners. And then you look at the new car that will be debuted, I think, that will be rolled out 2021 next year. This new, is it Gen 3 or Gen 2 car, the future of NASCAR racing. I mean, there's a lot of exciting stuff going on in our sport, and man, we're watching it change. I mean, you're talking about 360 degrees change, in NASCAR racing right in front of us, So, I mean, Tyler, would y'all ever thought that I would have never thought that Chip Ganassi, I mean, that's a guy that loves auto racing. Not only does he love sports car racing or Indy car racing, he loves NASCAR racing. And to see, I was surprised as anybody to hear the news that Justin Marks and his organization had acquired the assets and will now own Chip Ganassi Racing, NASCAR racing team at the end of 2020. I mean, it's happening all in front of us. And I think when we heard, and I know you guys heard, it's been a lot of talk of who are going to be the new owners, who's going to replace, all these guys that have been here forever. I never even thought about it, but it's happening right in front of us, man. And I think the health of the sport is pretty strong for the future.
Oh, yeah. When you look at it, Justin Marks' team, they just found out a few weeks ago they were losing their charter, so they knew they had to do something. This was a big splash. I applaud the aggressiveness that Trackhouse is showing here. Dominic, we already know that Daniel Suarez is going to be in one of those rides, and good for Daniel. He's earned it, especially with all the crap he's had to put up with the last few years of the all the different rides he's been in. Great for him to have some stability, and he's earned it based on how he's raced this year. How about that second car? Do you think it's Kurt Busch, or do they keep around Ross Chastain, or do they look elsewhere? Where do you think that they'll turn to for that second car?
I feel like that's a good problem to have if you're Justin Marks and you could pick one or the other. Like we were talking earlier in the show, do you go with somebody for the future? Do you go with the household name? I mean, I don't know, David. I feel like I look at this situation and I feel like they haven't made a decision who's going to be the teammate next year. Is it an audition for Ross Chastain and Kurt Busch? Are we going to see over the next few weeks, okay, let's see how these guys perform, and that could be kind of their audition for that ride the following season?
And man, you guys, y'all bring up a good point. Who's going to drive the second car for Justin Marks? And man, I think about it. Ross Chastain has done just a phenomenal job. He's a great race car driver. I mean, what he's done this year, his first year in Cup Series, is really, he's done a tremendous job. His finished results doesn't show how good he was running, and but man, he's just done a phenomenal job. I enjoy watching him race because he does so good. And then you look at, Kurt Busch, former Cup Series champion, and I think, and then you got to remember that, as much as we love our sport, NASCAR racing, it's business, it's business, and sometimes what we think the right thing to do, and sometimes it don't always turn out that way. You got to remember, it might come down to, does this driver have a big sponsor with him? You know what I mean? And sometimes
Kurt's got Monster already with him. That might be the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, there's a lot of elements. There's a lot of things that will make the decision for this organization. So it's going, it's interesting, and everybody's waiting for the news, and I'm sure it'll come out here before too much longer. But it's been kind of cool, all this cool news in our sport, and man, that's a big story that a lot of people are trying to figure out and can't wait to hear what the future is and who's going to drive that car.
Yeah, yeah. One more on the news and notes side. Dominic, we talked about Atlanta, kind of previewed it a bit. We didn't give out any names, though. Who do you like to possibly be in victory lane for that Atlanta race?
I like the hometown boys coming off of victory. Watch him punch his 14th victory in the NASCAR Cup Series this Sunday. Chase Elliott gets it done.
David, who are you watching for?
Well, I keep hoping that, Kevin Harvick's going to turn his season around and get back into victory lane. But, competing on this racetrack, year in and year out, knowing how you slip and slide around that place. Kevin Harvick has owned Atlanta Motor Speedway over the years, but there's nobody better when it comes to car control than, Kyle Larson and Chase Elliott. Those guys have really shined there in Atlanta here lately. And you look at the first, the race we had earlier this year at Atlanta Motor Speedway, man, that race was dominated by Kyle Larson. And, man, with about 20 laps to go in the race, there's a guy named Blaney, and where'd he come from? You know what I mean? He ran down Kyle Larson. And next thing you know, you got this Blaney kid in victory lane. So, I mean, we can't, you got to remember that. But, man, it's a hard decision. It's a tough one to make, but I'm going to choose Kevin Harvick again because I keep hoping that this guy will get back into victory lane and we'll see him in the chase. You can't forget about Denny Hamlin, but man, it's going to be a great race. It's going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to racing my race and then watching Sunday's race. It's going to be cool. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But Kevin
David,
Harvick, my pick. Yeah.
Okay, I'm with you on Harvick too. I think he gets a win before the playoff. This is his best chance to do so. I like him to get it done here. All right, time for our Ask David segment. But before we do, I got to tell you about the fine folks at Whataburger. You can stop by Whataburger for a hot, hearty breakfast any morning or late at night. They're serving up breakfast from 11 p.m. to 11 a.m. Proud to serve hot and fresh 24 hours a day. I got to tell you guys, when I was on my way back from Tampa, I was supposed to fly into Chicago. They redirected my flight to Dallas. I said, fine with me. You know what I'm doing? I'm going to Love Field, and we're going to Whataburger, baby. And it was about 9 o'clock in the morning, but that did not stop me from ordering a number one with cheese and fries and a Dr. Pepper. And it was a great early lunch, to say the least. So
now you're making me want some Whataburger here, Tyler. Thank you. And the closest one's an hour away.
Well, that being said, man, we had Whataburger for lunch today, and yesterday afternoon in Galveston we had lunch at Whataburger, and the day before I think it was like 10:30, and we had almost breakfast lunch at Whataburger. Man, those Dr. Pepper shakes are incredible, and man, and you're a creature of habits, Tyler. At number one, you can't beat it. You know what I mean? It's all good. I need to try something different, but man, I love hamburgers, and man, they make the best ones. So
time for our Ask David segment. We ask you to submit questions to us on Facebook, facebook.com/David Starr Podcast, Twitter @Starr Podcast, and by email, davidstarrpodcast@gmail.com. Let's start out in the email inbox. This one comes from Cindy. David, have you ever raced outside of the U.S.?
Man, that's a great question, and I have not, and I haven't, never. I think, when I made the jump to full-time Xfinity Series from the NASCAR Truck Series, I think the year after I went full-time Xfinity racing, they raced the road course in Canada, and I don't remember the name. Y'all, what's the road course up there in Canada? Y'all know?
Montreal.
Canadian Tire Motorsports Park.
Yeah, that's it. So to answer your question, no, I haven't. You know what I mean? And probably would have if I wouldn't have jumped over to the NASCAR Xfinity Series when I did. But no, I've never raced outside of the United States of America. But you know, I come close.
Is there a track that you want to race at? I love, David, that Mexico City track that the Busch Series was at for a few years.
I think it'd be kind of cool. You know, there's so many great racetracks across, you know, in the world. I think it'd be kind of cool to have the opportunity to go to another country and do what you love to do. You know, I've heard a lot of stories from a lot of different drivers over the years. And one of them came from my teammate, Mike Skinner, you know, when they went over to, I think they raced a NASCAR race in Japan. Was it Japan?
Yes.
Back years ago, you know, Mike shared a lot of great stories with me, and he said the facility was unbelievable. And, you know, so there's been a lot of guys that we've raced against and have been part of this sport, a lot of great race car drivers that have raced in different parts of the world. And you know, it would be kind of cool. I haven't had that opportunity to date, but hopefully by the time I'm done doing what I love to do, I will have that opportunity.
Very cool. One more for you. This one comes from Buck on the email inbox. David, what's your biggest pet peeve?
Man, you know, there's a lot of them, you know. You know, I'm going to say some stuff I probably shouldn't say, but man, you know, I never sit still. I'm always working. I'm always moving. There's always something going on. I don't like to hang out with people that are lazy. You know, laziness is the pet peeve of mine, you know, being clean. You know, I'm a clean freak. I like everything clean. I like my windshield on my race car clean all the time. I like the bodies, you know, I like the race car to shine, no handprints on it. That's a pet peeve. You know, there's a lot of weird ones, you know, and my wife will tell you that I'm weird, and I'm just kind of weird that way. You know, I don't like leaves in my yard. You know, I like my grass not to have a leaf laying in the grass, you know, so there's a lot of them, you know, and so yeah, but on the racing side, it would be I like having a clean windshield. I like inside my race car to be clean. And so those are pet peeves. If I get to the racetrack and my race car is dirty, man, it eats at me, you know. So I can't really, I got to clean it myself, get a vacuum cleaner, wipe it all down. You know, that's my biggest pet peeve at the races, just not having a clean race car, and having a dirty race car just kind of, I don't know. It's a pet peeve. It's a weird one, but it's mine, you know.
Mine, Dominic, would be just rude people. I don't like dealing with people that can't be kind to one another and show people proper respect. We're all due respect of some sorts. I mean, Marty Smith said it best, be kind, work hard, and everything else will work itself out. So what's yours, Dominic?
You're absolutely, well, there's two that come to mind, kind of building off then, like what you said, David. I don't even know if I should open my mouth on this, but I'm going to anyway. I love my hometown. There's some great people here, but one thing I can't stand is you go to the store and people just turn their head and they just don't want to talk to you. And I don't like that, because I'm the kind of person, I will talk to a wall. I enjoy talking to people. So when I see people doing that, and I see that a lot in my hometown, it just grinds my gears. And the other one too, maybe you guys have the same pet peeve when you're eating with somebody and they're just making just loud sound effects with their mouth. Just close your mouth. I don't want to see what you're eating. I don't want to hear what you're eating.
Seafoods.
Yeah, exactly. Not for me.
Hey man, I got a confession to make. When I ate at Whataburger, and that hamburger is so good, man. Dominic, I'm gonna have to watch myself when we're together eating at Whataburger, because man.
Well, hey, we said
those hamburgers are so good, so juicy. Sometimes I'm smacking and making a lot of noise because I'm just enjoying it as I'm eating it. So it's good to know that's one of your pet peeves.
Well, hey, we sat next to each other at Whataburger after the Texas race. I would have told you something. I'm the kind of person. Okay. I'm blunt, so I would have totally said something. No, I didn't hear anything.
Well, that's cool, good. Man. That's
You're
cool.
Good, dude.
That is so funny. Guys, we got to run. Nice that we can sit down, catch up, and do this show. Hopefully we'll be back on next week with a guest. But nonetheless, going to be back after a week off here on a Let's Go Racing. You can subscribe to the show on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, on YouTube. Make sure to hit that like button, leave us a 5-star review, or don't leave us one at all. Like us on Facebook, David Starr Podcast, Twitter, follow us there at Star Podcast, and by email, davidStarPodcast@gmail.com. We'll put the checkered flag out on this episode for David Starr, Dominic, Aragon. I'm Tyler Jones saying so long. It's been another edition of Let's Go Racing. We'll see you next time.